as we close tonight, we are reminded that the Jewish story has never only been about survival. It has always been about thriving as Jews wherever we go, proud, visible, and unafraid. A.J. Edelman, known to many as the Hebrew Hammer, became the first Orthodox Jewish man to compete in the Winter Olympics, representing Israel on the world stage. And he made history again as the first Israeli to qualify for the Olympics in 2 different sliding sports. But what made that moment truly powerful was not only that a Jew was competing, it was that he stood there openly and proudly as a Jew. Before competition, A.J. put on tefillin, publicly, without hesitation, without apology. Because in the Rebbe's words, every Jew is a lamplighter, sent into the world to bring godliness wherever he stands, a light to the nations. Because wherever a Jew stands in the world, when he stands proudly as a Jew, that itself is a Kiddush Hashem. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage A.J. Edelman.
Well, thank you for having me. I never quite know what to say on a night of emotional speeches and all sorts of things like that because I'm just a guy who slides down mountains in a tin can. I think, when I was asked if I would come talk, I didn't actually know what to talk about because there's a lot of things that have occurred over the last 12 years of my life ever since I had this dream of bringing an Israeli bobsled team to the Olympic Games. Of course, many of you guys followed the team and know that there was quite the story both before, during, and after the games. Quite a book in and of itself, but I'll talk at least tonight for a very brief period of time about how this all connects to what I think the theme of the night has been, which is taking one step forward in our place as Jews in the Jewish community. So 12 years ago, the question I'm most often asked is, how do you get started with bobsled? Right? It's not, do you ever get hurt? How many bones do you break? It's, how do you get started? And it's a great question because how does anyone get started in a sport that no one cares about except for 2 weeks out of every 4 years, no Jew has heard about, and everyone thought was a crazy dream until about a month ago? And the answer is that you just take the step. So about 12 years ago, I was approached by the Israeli hockey team, and they saw me playing at MIT, and they came to me and they said, "Hey, AJ, would you mind playing for the national team? We're World B, C level team. We bounce around between those two. You might have some applicable skills." I was playing at MIT at the time, so they said, "Would you mind coming out to play for Israel?" And I thought at the time that there was one industry that Jews were underrepresented in. The Jews were overrepresented in every industry except for this one. And it couldn't be because of anti-Semitism, because sport is a very market force-driven industry. No one's discriminating against Jews to be on their team if they can make them money. And so I thought it must be a self-selection process where Jewish children, they didn't see Jewish role models competing in sport. And because they didn't see Jewish role models competing in sport, there was no investment in sport. And it filled this cycle over and over again. I marveled that if I had gone to ask any parent of a Jewish kid if they would get piano lessons for their kid, how much they would spend, they would go to great lengths to make their child a mediocre piano player until their teens. And then the teen would never touch the piano again. But if a kid asked his parent, how he could be a world-class archer, rock climber, hockey player, basketball player. The response I might expect would be, what do you think, there's a future in that? You think you're gonna make money from that? I mean, how much money are your kids making from playing the piano? But I thought at the time, I really wanted to make a change. I really wanted this to change because I think that for some children, development, their path of development is best accomplished through sport. Some kids learn best through chess, some through music, some through reading and writing, but some really excel in sport. And sport is a universal language. It bridges all sorts of gaps. And our community is underserved in that area. And so I thought we needed to change something. But in order to change something, you need to be the change. Right? It wouldn't suffice for me to go out and say I played hockey at MIT, which is a joke in and of itself. Right? I had to go do something. And that's when I saw the sport of bobsled on television. It was October of 2013. It's kind of like God put me on that couch, and I was in the dorm at MIT, and there was bobsled on TV, and I took a look at it, and I thought really stupidly, I can do that. Israel can do that. And so I scoured the internet. Was there ever an Israeli bobsled team? And there was from 2002 to 2005. They didn't make the games, and then they disbanded. But there had been a couple of guys since that time bouncing around on a lunch tray, head first down the same bobsled track, and that was a sport called skeleton. And so I got in touch with the Israeli Bobsled and Skeleton Federation. I said, listen, you don't know me, and I don't know you. But I'm telling you, if you put your faith in me, I'll take you wherever you need to go. So they said, okay, you're way ahead of yourself. Why don't you go try the sport of skeleton? It's very violent, it's horrific, it's chaotic. For those of you who don't know skeleton, you lie on a lunch tray, your chin is an inch from the ground, and you go 95 miles an hour smashing your face into walls down a mile-long track for about 60 seconds. It's the best sport for a Jew. And so I went to Lake Placid to try this sport, and when I tried this sport, at the end of the week, they gave a scouting report. They gave the same scouting report to me that they gave to the Israeli Bobsled and Skeleton Federation. The guy sat down across from me. He said, AJ, you are not what we would call athletic. And I was really upset about it because I played hockey and I thought I was athletic. But in our world, athleticism means something different. Athleticism means you can run fast, you can jump high. I was just a bit of a pudgy goalie, right? Like, it's not the same thing. And so he said, you can't balance because you have a small curvature in your spine. You can't run to save your life. You will never be competitive at this sport. You may get down the track, and that'll be the most of it, but you will never, ever make the Olympics. And I looked back at him because I was from Boston, and I said, that's exactly what they told Tom Brady. And he looked back at me, and he said, AJ, he said, AJ, you are no Tom Brady. So the chutzpah in me was there. Every Jew has like a neshama filled with chutzpah. And my whole life I'd been telling myself, I can't do things, right? I can't do this, I can't do that, but I was really upset. I said, no one tells me that I can't do something, and even more, no one tells me that Israel can't do something, because Israel can do anything. So that was my 23rd birthday, March 14th of 2014. I went back to the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid. I sat down to make Kiddush that evening because it was Friday, end of the week. And I wrote down on a piece of paper 2,884. That was the amount of days that I considered were to take place between that date and the Beijing 2022 Games. And I said, until these 2,884 days are finished, I will not give up on this dream. Over the next 4 years, I self-taught myself because I couldn't afford. Bobsled and skeleton are racing sports. They're very, very resource intensive. Skeleton's like $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Bobsled's like $250,000 a year. Very expensive. But a coach is a lot of money. And so I couldn't afford a coach. And so for the next 4 years, I self-coached by watching 12 hours of YouTube a day and living at the bobsled track in a van. And I was deadly committed to this, particularly for one reason. I wanted Israel to get the bobsled team. And I thought that if I was having trouble raising $40,000 to do skeleton, then it would be much easier if I became an Olympian in skeleton and then went to people and said, look, I've done it before, we can do it again. It didn't work out that way. I did make the Olympics in 2018. It was a rather remarkable story for Israel. I really always credit Israel for it because every morning I woke up, said Modeh Ani, and said, Israel's going to get this. Every evening I went to bed. I said, Baruch Hashem for the opportunity to represent Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Please Hashem help me achieve my goal of representing Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael in the 2018 Olympic Games. This was Israel's victory. But thereafter, in the last 8 years, started a new journey. It was to get the bobsled team to the Games. And this is where the theme of the night comes in of one step at a time. For the last 4,000 plus days, since March 14th of 2014, every single day had a purpose. Every single moment had an end goal. But it was always with the realization that it could only be taken one step at a time. Just one small step forward. Because it was impossible to bridge the gap between being, I am certifiably the slowest push athlete, meaning the running portion. I'm the slowest bobsled athlete ever to make the Olympics, and I'm the slowest skeleton athlete to ever make the Olympics. And in the last 80 years, only 2 countries have done it in both. That would be Korea and Israel. But for the same people. But the reason it was accomplished is because of one step every day. And one of the most amazing things about the run that the Shul Runnings team had in the last 4 years is that we did take one step every day. When the team was decimated on October 7th, we had a beautiful team lined up for the qualification run. And all of them were called to Miluim, including, if you guys know the saga of what happened in Milan, of the team withdrawing from the final run, it was to get one of our hero athletes into the sled. All right, the hero athlete was Ward. Ward Fawase is a Druze hero who served in Gaza. He was one of the athletes who was called to Gaza. The team fell apart, but the team kept going because every single week I would fly in a new athlete from Israel. I would take them to a grocery store and I would put a shopping cart in their hands. I would say, push the shopping cart as fast as you can, and then jump on the little thing like a kid on the shopping cart. And if you do that on the ice, and you just wait for me to jump in, you jump in the back, then we might have some small degree of success. And that's how we got by in the next 2 years. We did remarkably well. We actually finished 3rd overall in the North American circuit that year. But again, it's just about the one step, because every single day it was hard. It was the hardest thing that I'm sure I'll ever do except for fatherhood. I'm sure that's going to be much more difficult, judging by what I put my parents through. But I do think that the way it all came together, especially in these last couple of years, was just realizing that this was Israel's team. It was a team of the Jewish people, and that each and every one of us, in our own way, was contributing a very small step until we finally did make it. And we did make it. But I am proof, or at least my journey is proof, that if you just plan out something very carefully and execute one small step at one time, like this Pushka app, because that's why I'm here, to talk to you about the Pushka app. If you do it, then you can actually accomplish some pretty incredible things. Right? In my life, I don't consider myself anything out of the ordinary. It's just my job, or it's what I do. My boys, I call them my boys, they're like 30 years old. They're not boys. But anyone who sits in the back of my sled, I'm responsible for them, so I call them my boys. My boys constantly marvel because they're new to this. They only came together in August. They marvel at what the country accomplished, at what we all accomplished, everyone in this room, because the team exists because of everyone in this room, everyone in the community. So they marvel at what we accomplished, but I never actually do, because I know that it was a series of 4,000 plus small steps. So when you go home tonight, if you have any goals, if you have any aspirations or dreams, just think of our story, think of the team's story, take one small step, and don't stop.